In today's episode, Charles asks, what can an SEO company do to speed up my mobile website? It depends. The short answer is probably very little, and that seems like a strange thing to say because SEO companies should be able to do stuff like that. But especially for larger corporations and businesses, the more complex your IT infrastructure is, the less an SEO company can do, because so much of what controls site speed is under the purview of IT, as it should be, because you want really good governance and controls on your IT infrastructure. So let's talk about what makes up a faster website, particularly for mobile, but just what makes up a faster website in general, because if you're still differentiating between mobile and non-mobile in 2020 or beyond, it's a mobile world, right? So, site speed is composed really of like 7 things. It's the speed of the physical servers themselves, right, in your data center and the data center's network and stuff, which is one of the reasons why, in modern times, you're going to host your website somewhere off premises unless you have some really strict regulatory requirements about why your servers have to live in your data center. For the most part, most people will host with a provider. So doing a good assessment of the provider's speed, data center speeds, network speeds, etc., will be important. It's an important consideration for vendors. Second is caching. Caching is when you have a content delivery network of some kind that essentially stores copies of your website invisibly around the world, and then a user who goes to your website is actually reading a copied version at a location closer to them than your website is. If your website is in, say, Perth, Australia, and you're using a global caching company, and a user in London goes to your website, they may get a London data center from your caching delivery network, content delivery network company, and will get a much faster experience than going all the way to Australia for your site. Those 2 things really are like metal considerations. Where does the physical metal box live? And can make a very big difference, particularly caching. I personally use a service called Cloudflare. I use the free version, and it's really good at distributing that stuff without screwing up your tracking, which is important for marketing. Third is compactness of code. So there's a technique called minifying, and that essentially looks at things like JavaScript and stuff and reduces them to the essential code, strips out a lot of stuff. Again, a lot of caching plugins and services can do this to some degree. Again, Cloudflare does that. Promise is not an ad for Cloudflare because they don't have an affiliate program. I wish they did. But compactness of code, it matters. Compression of data matters as well. And this is something that is done at the server level. Servers can compress data and send essentially a compressed version of a website to a browser, and then the user's browser on the user end unpacks that and displays it. Compression does speed up a site substantially because, with good compression settings turned on in your server software, you can compress a site, 60, 70, 80, 90%, depending on how much data you're sending along. That is done at the server operating system level. There, again, are services that can help with compression midstream, but it's better if it's done at the server. For mobile, coding your site to be mobile first is important. If it's a responsive site, if it's a mobile-first site, it will probably do better. Having things like AMP, accelerated mobile pages, enabled will help as well, particularly for Google. Google is one of the leading platforms that has been pushing for AMP for years, and they do reward sites for using AMP, so make sure that that's in place. Make sure that you are removing any unnecessary code and tracking. This is especially true of websites where there's a lot of cruft, old trackers, legacy trackers, trackers from CRM systems that you migrated off of. Marketing technology in particular is really bad about this, about removing stuff that you don't need anymore. And 7th, and finally, is asynchronous loading of code pieces to your website. All those different trackers and things, they should not be on your website itself. They should be in a service like Google Tag Manager. Tag Manager is, we talked about this before, it's like a bucket. And you put all your code tracking inside the bucket, and then only the bucket loads, and then the rest of your site can continue loading. And inside the bucket, Google Tag Manager will start loading all the Facebook pixel and Twitter pixel and YouTube tracker and all this and that stuff. But you want that to be within the big bucket itself, so that the bucket is the only thing that has to load before the rest of your page loads. And that way your site functionally is much faster. All of these are technical considerations. This falls very much under what is called technical SEO, and is all about getting the infrastructure to support what it is you want to do. The good news is there are many companies, good hosting companies, that offer a substantial number of these features. There are good providers of content delivery networks that provide a lot of these features and can do most of these things. The things that are up to us as marketers are choosing what code to run on our sites, choosing whether our site is mobile optimized first, and that asynchronous loading of what is and is not supposed to load on the page and in what order. The more time you invest up front planning this stuff out, the faster your site goes and the easier it is to manage, because you're doing it from a sort of top-down planning approach rather than, as I have done many times in the past on my own site, done a bottom-up approach, and then you audit your site every year and look at it and go, "Ooh, I don't remember installing that. Where did that come from?" And making your site substantially faster, but not up until that point for all those visitors who got there and got a slower site. The best way to test this is with services, again, like Google's free site speed tester. Either there's a standalone version out there, but if you're using Google Search Console, which you should be if you're doing any kind of SEO, there's a page speed indicator and control panel right within Search Console that will tell you how fast your site is from Google's perspective. And since they are still the dominant company in search, you want to make sure that they see your site as being nice and fast. So, lots to unpack. There's a lot to do, and again, at larger organizations, you're going to need the help of IT to do a lot of this stuff because it's their bailiwick. So make sure that you have good integration with IT. The best way to integrate with IT is bring beer and food down to their desks every Friday afternoon. As a former IT person, I can tell you that is greatly appreciated and does wonders for internal collaboration in an informal way. You don't need a formal process. Just show up with some beer and some munchies and ask them what they got going on, tell them what you got going on, and you'll find yourself with a lot of common ground very, very quickly. If you have follow-up questions on technical SEO, leave them in the comments box below. Subscribe to the YouTube channel and the newsletter. I'll talk to you soon. Take care. Want help solving your company's data, analytics, and digital marketing problems? Visit trustinsights.ai today and let us know how we can help you.